So, welcome to another exciting episode here with Dr. Media. I am your instructor, Domiko L. Cunningham, and today what we're going to be looking at here inside of Maya, we're going to be taking a look at fluid effects. Fluid effects are really awesome effects. As you can see right now that's running in the background, I have a fluid effect running, and it's being manipulated by particles. Um, This is a relatively simple fluid effect, and I'm going to show you how to control those fluids and realistically be able to make something very similar to what we have in the background right here. Because we're not going to create this, we're not going to recreate this exactly, because a lot of this is very organic. It's about being able to have fun with the fluid effects and be able to understand them. So in this video, I'm going to stop this. And I'm going to get rid of the stuff that I have in here. So I have a cylinder, all these other things. Let's just delete that stuff out. So now I have a brand new scene, basically. And my scene, I have about 4,000 frames in my scene. Now, depending on how long you want your effect to run and what your effect is, you can have this shorter or have it longer. The first thing I want to do with this effect is I'm going to use particles to drive the effect. So the effect that you just saw was driven by particles, and the particles reacted with the fluid, and then the fluid gave me the smoky type effects, but the particles themselves are what push the fluid. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to make myself a particle emitter. So I'm underneath dynamics. I'm going to say I want to create an emitter, and there's my emitter, and let's change my background. To change my background, I'm going to hit Alt and B, and I can change my background to cycle through, and I'm going to get rid of the grid just for right now. So I'm going to play this back, and you can see that my scene is actually generating particles. So I have particles being generated out. So I'm going to change some things about these particles that I have in here. One of the first things is that I want something to control this particle. So this particle could be controlled by a shape. It could be controlled by expressions, and I just want to talk a little bit about how different pieces can control my particles. So I'm going to just make a CV curve. So let's come in here and just click down some CV curve points, and I'm going to hit Q to end that process. So I'm going to select these particles. Actually, I'm going to select my curve first, and I'm going to come in here to fields, and I want to say that I want to create a volume curve. And when I do that, I get a volume curve. Volume curves are actually pretty nice because you can see that it made a volume around my curve. So it did exactly what it said. It made a volume curve. So this volume axis field that's right here, I have a strength like a magnitude like I normally would have. But I also have a round axis. I can make this spin around my axis and do things like that. One of the things that I want to change is the section radius. I want to make this radius a lot larger than it currently is. So let's put it at maybe 15 or so. Let's say 15. Looks like it needs to be a little bit smaller. Maybe that would do me well. So let's see. And I've got this volume fill. Now, the thing you have to remember is that these particles in this field are not connected. So I'm going to select my particles, and then I'm going to hold Control and click on my field, and then I'm going to go back to fields and say Affect Selected Objects. So now these objects are being affected by my field, and you can see that the field is actually changing how those work. And I'm going to say I want to trap those inside. See that? I can turn on this trap inside function right here, which is really nice. And I'm also going to give this directional speed. So let's say that we give it a direction. So let's say at about 1. Now I'm going to go back to my particles, and I'm going to go on my particle shape. I want to turn down, actually in my emitter, I'm going to turn down how many particles I'm generating per second. So I only want to generate like 25, and you can see right now just by doing that my particles are generating and they're spinning. So if I look at this, I can see my particles are spinning, and let's say directional speed, let's say a round axis. So I've got 10 around axis, and you can see now these guys are spinning out. So they're spinning as they come off, and I'm going to go negative along that axis. So now they'll spin kind of up. Let's rewind that. So now they're spinning kind of up, and if I look at this, you know, you can turn off your trap. You can trap the ends if you want to. You can turn on the trap radius. So you can see right there, the trap radius keeps them from kind of going out. So it kind of just reworks it into itself. I'm not going to trap the ends of it though. I'm going to leave it just like that. And I'm going to grab, let's stop our playback. I'm going to grab my field and I'm going to move it up. So this is kind of at the base of this. So now, there we go. We got like this kind of loop-de-loop going through here. And that's what we have. So right now, that's pretty nice, right? I've got this kind of being controlled in here. Let's bring this back. Make sure those are lined up again. So my field should be at the tip of this. I meant to grab my actual curve when I moved my field before, but it grabbed it without grabbing that. So I can see now that my field, I've got this, is kind of going up and it's kind of spouting off up here at the top. Now the other thing is that I want to click on my particles. So I can do that inside of my outliner. And my particles, you know, right now they're emitting forever. But I want to go to my particle shape, and I'm going to say that I have a random range, and the random range is going to be about 9 for the lifespan, and then randomly like 2. Let's just see what that looks like right now. It's still too much. Let's bring it in some, because I want them to die off relatively quick. And let's try this again and see. Let's see what I have. That's a little too short, so let's say at 4, 3, 2. There we go. That's kind of what I want. Let's maybe do it at 1.8. And there we go. So it seems like it's kind of contained inside of my shape right now. So that's nice. I kind of want that to be what's going on. So I've got these kind of being pushed through here. I'm going to go to my vortex field, and let's say along axis, and I do -8 because I want to push it up pretty quick. And it's fine. They still die relatively at the same point. It's just now that I have more speed pushing them up. And let's make this a little turbulent. So let's make some turbulence to it. And I do want to say trap ends. So that we kind of get this. So now I've got it kind of inside this container, almost like confetti in this container. So that's trapped in there. Now, the next part of what I want to do, I've got my particles kind of generating, and they're doing some randomness, which is kind of nice. Let's make our particles a little bit more viewable. Let's go back to the particle shape, and I'm going to go in here to the render attributes, and I'm going to turn these into spheres. And I'm going to say, click on current render type, and I can look at my spheres and see how big I want to make those. And I'm also going to do something for their size. So I'm going to click on general, and let's look in here and let's see if we have something that we can use for my point size, actually for my radius. So I'm going to do a radius per particle, so a radius per particle, and hit OK. And this radius per particle, I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go to create expression, and this is my what I want to talk to. and I'm going to say this equals random, and I'm going to give it an array. So random 1, well, and actually random 0.2 to let's say 0.8, and let's create that. So now my particles should be, they should have a random radius, and they do. And we can see right now they have a huge random radius, and they're randomizing between 0.2 and 0.8, which is what I wanted for these guys. So that's kind of nice. So this no longer controls that. If you can see now, this doesn't do anything anymore when I change this, because this radius per particle is what's controlling my simulation right now. So you can see they're got random sizes and everything else. Let's go to my let's actually go back to my emitter, and I want to generate like maybe 5 particles. Let's maybe do 10 a second. I don't want to generate too many a second. And speed, let's put our speed down to like 0.5. So I've got got a lot of random settings in here, and I've got this kind of set up in a random way. So I can see I use my volume axis, I have an emitter, and I actually have gone in here and actually set up an expression, which is really nice. I've got an expression sitting in here. If I wanted to have color to this, I could do a color and do a add per particle attribute for my color, and do that. And you can see now that I could create this as a ramp, and it would basically generate me, colors based off of my ramp. And what's nice is I can come in here and actually edit this ramp. Right now it's black and white. I could take this and make this red on one end, so when they're born they'll be red. Here let's make them yellow, and at the end let's leave them white so they die. So you can see now they're red when they're born, they're yellow in the middle, and they're white, they go towards white as they die, which is really cool. Now I can put textures inside of here, and I'm going to say this is going to be a smooth ramp all the way up. So, and remember, this right now is a V ramp, so it's looking at vertical. I could set it to a U ramp, but I want to do it as a V ramp because I'm looking at a vertical type of movement that's going on with this right now. So I've got that much of it set up. So that's my first part. My first part was setting up my particles, setting up my vector field, and then being able to do some random shapes on it. And I did a little bit of per particle stuff on this. Not a lot. It's some very simple per particle emissions that are happening. So it got some simple expressions that are handling the per particle stuff. And I could even do a random for the lifespan of the per particles. Same thing for acceleration, position, all those things can be controlled through expressions. So in the second part of this, we are going to come back and we're going to start adding in our fluids, and I'm going to show you how to control the fluids and how to bind the particles to the fluid box. So we'll do that in our next video.